Faith, family, wrestling. This is Wrestling for the Faith.
Wrestling for the Faith.
And now, here's your host, Casey Kage.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wrestling for the Faith. I'm your host, Casey Kage. Today, we are joined by the one and only Jeremiah Plunkett, straight from Tater Peeler, Tennessee. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. It's so weird not to see you blonde.
It has been a while. That's how long it's been since we've connected. It has,
yeah. We used to always run into each other on shows, and then we stopped. And I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah. Once I kind of took off from the Nashville scene, me and Rivers went back up and did some stuff for Bird a few times, but we've not done too much up that way since the blonde days. So, yeah, we lost that loser shaves their head match to Chip Hazard and Johnny Rock. I don't even remember when that was, early 2012 maybe, and shaved the heads, and then we were sick of the maintenance. Doing the blonde we were having to bleach, like, at least me, I was having to bleach it like every week. I was getting tired of it, and my wife was definitely getting tired of it.
Yeah, when I was tagging with Quentin Charisma, we would bleach our hair, and we didn't know how to do it either. I feel like that's the reason a lot of mine's gone, is we just put it on, and when it started burning, we'd wash it off. That seemed like a good amount of time.
So I got to ask, how much of an influence personally has Dutch Mantell had on your career?
Man, I love Dutch. So there was a period of time when, I don't know how me and Dutch, I think, literally just linked up because I also lived in Murfreesboro, and it would be less for him to drive. So for a while, Dutch had a little training school in Lebanon, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And also, he wanted some people to take some bumps for him because Dutch wasn't going to take any bumps.
Right.
So I rode around with Dutch for a little bit. I would say it was probably a 6-month stretch or whatever where I was riding around a fair little bit with Dutch. I know the joke was always Daddy Dutch because I was patterning a lot out of him at the time. So, yeah. Yeah,
well, the reason that I ask, and I might be off on this, but Tater Peeler, Tennessee just sounds like a Dutch.
No, actually, it was do you remember Doogie Vance, who did commentary for Saw? He also is on the radio out here.
Yeah, I believe so.
So when I was working for Showtime All-Star Wrestling, Paul Adams, rest in peace, put a gimmick on me where I was like this creepy backwoods redneck, right? And I always wanted to be from where my grandparents lived. They had a farm in a place called Las Casas, Tennessee, little unincorporated town. And it's where I spent like every weekend until I was probably 18.
Right.
On my grandparents' property. And I always wanted to do that because it's a legit country town. I wanted to put it on the map. And Paul would never let it happen. And so he was always trying to find a place. And one day Doogie said Tater Peeler, Tennessee. And I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I'm like, this is dumb. Is it even a real place? I know about Tater Peeler Road. And that's what he made it up from Tater Peeler Road. But strangely enough, there was a little unincorporated town until 1890s or 1920s around, before it just became a dead city. But it was a little tiny town up near Lebanon called Tater Peeler, Tennessee.
Oh, wow.
And I hated it. But then the next day after that episode aired, my uncle, who would always watch my stuff after the fact, came up to me and goes, "Where's Tater Peeler, Tennessee?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's this thing I hate." And then I'd go to other shows and fans would come up. So people actually did watch the program and say, "Hey, where's Tater Peeler?" And I'm like, "I've got to keep this." Especially at the time, it's the only thing about me that's over. So I might as well keep it, right? So it's been Tater Peeler Tennessee ever since.
Okay, well, I was a little off. It really sounded like a Dutchism because I don't remember if, I've told you this or you've heard any of my story, but, I went to one of the University of Dutch seminars, and it was Dutch who told me to bleach my hair blonde. And, then he told me, think outside the box. Don't be from Cleveland, Tennessee. Find something find something different, So I started doing Emerald City, but no, Tater Peeler. I was almost 100% positive that was a Dutchism.
Well, so it is and it isn't. So obviously, Dutch is from Oil Trough, Texas,
Right.
which is another town that does not exist. There's an Oil Trough, Arkansas.
Right.
There's no Oil Trough, Texas. And normally I'd apologize to Dutch for blasting that out, but he put it in his book, so I'm sure it's fair game. So he would always like make up like crazy backstories for Oil Trough, Texas. So as a tribute to Dutch, when I'm telling some fans some made up story about where Tater Peeler, Tennessee is, I'll tell them that settlers were coming from the Northeast because they're tired of the snow. They're heading to Texas, and along the way, some guys didn't want to go anymore, and they founded Tater Peeler, Tennessee. And the payoff to the story, where it's a tribute to Dutch, is that the remaining settlers who weren't lazy and went on founded Oil Trough.
Well, yeah, I'd never thought anything about doing a different hometown. I always thought, well, sometimes I would do Nashville. I was from Nashville. I never liked Chattanooga, so I would never be from Chattanooga unless people just did it. But sometimes I was Nashville, but I was kind of like you. I was like, I want to put my hometown on the map, so I'm going to do Cleveland. But when Dutch set me down and was telling me, hey, don't be from Cleveland, do something different, something that makes you stand out. And that was his example. He said, I'm from Oil Trough, Texas. And I said, yeah, it didn't click with me. And he said, show it to me on a map. I was like, oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I forgot we're playing characters here.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And it's way easy to forget that. I always did. You said you did Nashville. I always used to do, mainly just because my wrestling style and like who influenced me was Memphis. Yeah. So like I'll do Memphis forever. And then people will be like, oh man, like what street you from in Memphis? Because Memphis people are real proud about being from Memphis. I know I'm marrying one. And I'd be like, I can't say Beale Street. Nobody lives on Beale Street. I don't know, so Memphis, I've been now. Again, my fiance is from Memphis, but like I couldn't think up anything then. So I was like, around downtown, just run away.
Oh yeah. So how did you break in the business, and when was that?
So I began training and had my first match in 2005. Prior to that, probably 3 or 4 years, I was it's not dreaded now, but I remember when I broke in, you couldn't say anything about this, backyard wrestler.
Yeah.
My dad, my grandfather, and me and some friends built a 14 by 14 wood ring after going to a couple Burt shows and during intermission, sneaking under the ring and trying to see the layout of everything. My dad's a carpenter by trade, so the ring was better than most. Like if I would have snuck under there, I'd be like, there's some wood, and that'd have been it, because I'm not handy at all. But it was pretty solid. I've bumped in worse rings wrestling in some small, terrible towns. Although we did that for a while, and we put our videos up on YouTube and stuff like that. Actually, there's some still up there, which is hilarious. I think they're super funny. But then, so I graduated high school. I wanted to play football in college. But I knew I was undersized. Like I was bulking up my senior year. But like bulking up at the time was a little hard for me. And I got up to like 245 was as big as I could get after my senior year. And I played offensive line.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't get very many offers. I got 2. One was Cumberland University and one was Liberty University, both in Tennessee, both private colleges. Both only partial scholarships, so it'd still be $10,000 a year. And my mom, my parents obviously said no.
Yeah.
So I had a academic scholarship. Then I just went to MTSU, but I was like, well, I can't play football. Football's done. What can I do? And I wouldn't want to be one of these guys playing like semi-pro football, or there's no, you know what I mean? Just if I don't want to do the work for all that. You know what I mean? I'm a little lazy as it goes too. But I was like, but I always loved pro wrestling. And I had just figured out that it was a thing that people my size could do, from going to a show at the fairgrounds and Bill Dundee walking by. And I'm like, oh my God, he's smaller than me.
Yeah.
You know, because until then I just watched it on TV. And even when I went to some of the shows, like, guys were still bigger than me. Yeah. But then Bill Dundee, I'd watched growing up my entire life, you know, is not the biggest man in the world. And I'm like, oh my God, I can potentially do this. So I started going to independent shows and would ask everybody on their way to the ring, legitimately, like as they're slapping hands or getting heat, they trained guys. And I didn't know, you know what I mean? And I don't even have the excuse that we didn't have the internet. Like, I just didn't know. I didn't know that was a thing. And finally, a couple guys said, yeah. And it was me and Mike Woods, Buzzed Up, and Outlaw Lee Condrey. They wrestled for Mike Porter's NWA main event.
Wow. How do you ever talk to those guys anymore?
Mikey and Buzz I talk to a lot. Buzz especially. Buzz I talk to just about every day.
I've not seen or heard anything about those guys in forever.
Yeah. Like I said, Buzzy I talked to a lot. Mikey I talked to relatively decently amount. And then Lee just kind of drops off the face of the earth. I'm apparently going to see him in a couple of weeks they're doing a reunion in Columbia, Tennessee, which will be really exciting because I haven't seen him in a long time. But no, yeah, I talked to him a lot. So you guys worked for Porter, did you not? For main event? Yeah. Yeah. Down at Freddie's Auction House in Columbia, Tennessee.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was some good crowds in there, actually. I mean, a lot of times that place was packed. Yeah. I remember in let's see, when did you start there? 05?
Let's see. I wasn't working. I only worked a handful of days for Porter in Columbia at those times. Because, you know, Mike would, you know, rest in peace to Mike too, but he would get mad at people and kick them off. So I'm sure, like, once I got in, Buzzy or Mikey had gotten mad, and, you know, I worked. There was another show on the other side of Columbia, so I worked over there. I was fine, but yeah. So 05 was when I broke in.
Okay. Yeah, I remember my first time going to work for Mike, and at the time, Bert was running. He was doing TV at the Stadium Inn on Wednesday nights. Okay. And then we was doing like a spot show, you know, the rest of the week up until Saturday. And then, like, Nashville, they'd usually bring it back to Nashville, or Saturday, they'd usually bring it back to Nashville. But there was a week where there was a couple of days off, and Bert sent us over to I rode with Cassidy Riley, but he sent, you know, me and Cassidy and I think Chase and Andy over there. And after the match, I worked Cass that night. And after the match, Porter brings the envelopes around, and I'm looking, and I went, you know, if this was anywhere around home, I would be fine with this. But this is not what Bert told me I'd be getting. So I called Bert and I said, hey, I don't want to cause any problems, but everything's not here. He said, give me just a minute. Here in a minute, Porter walked back over and said, here. Yeah. Yeah. But no, I always enjoyed over there. All of those, the Columbia, Springfield, all those towns around there were a lot of fun because they usually drew well. Yeah. I remember working my first Mule Day in Columbia, which do you know Francisco Chiazzo? I'm not sure that I've ever actually met him. Okay. He loves when I talk about Mule Day just because, like, you know, he's from New York and now lives in Florida. So something as country as a town having Mule Day, it just blows his mind. He's always like, you got to get me booked on Donkey Day. I'm like, it's Mule Day, Frankie. But yeah, I remember seeing my first Mule Day crowd my first year in. And, you know, because where I broke in was Smyrna, Tennessee, and they ran a lot of hardcore stuff. Yeah.
My first, we'll get into my first match at some point. Holy God, it was, I bled my first match. It was insane. Actually, I listened to the episode where you're being interviewed, and I think we had a kind of a similar first match.
Oh, really?
But so I forgot. So it was real hardcore and stuff. They were shooting on people randomly for some reason and stuff like that. And Buzzy goes, "Hey man, I'm gonna come with me to Columbia this Saturday." I'm like, okay. And we was working across town. I don't even remember what it was called. Shane Morton was booking it, but then Shane left, and Hot Rod Biggs. Yeah, I'm sure you know Rod. He's a heck of a guy.
Yeah.
So he took over, and when he took over, I'd only worked like 2 or 3 weeks for Shane, and Hot Rod didn't tell me this till years later. I was putting him over for giving me a shot, but so like the promoter was like just wanting to cut money. And he's like, well, this kid's only been here a couple weeks. He's not over, whatever. So cut him. And Rod's like, hey, how about, he's like, we don't pay him much. How about we just use him a lot? Because I saw something in me. So it'd be like, I'd wrestle one match as me and then another match under a mask. Because they had like, of course, it's a small Southern locker room. So they had like masks and outfits just sitting here in case somebody no-showed. And then like I'd work the main event as, in another mask that was probably uncomfortable and boots that didn't fit me. But I didn't get like $5, you know what I mean? But like Rod was purposely every match I did though, where I was doing those stupid mask gimmicks or whatever, I'd tag with Hot Rod, or I would work with, Shane Morton if he came back, or work with guys like Lone Star. I don't know if you remember Lone Star, but like guys who could teach me.
Right.
Yeah, and so I give a lot to Rod because of that. So I was working across town from where you guys were, but still, like I was getting all that experience from guys like that.
Yeah, and that's what needs to happen. I mean, guys have to have that. I've always told guys, if you can, a lot of guys, you see the guys in the locker room, and if somebody is more experienced or maybe somebody who has a name, there's some guys in the locker room who's like, yeah, I want to work with that guy. And then there's some guys who are like, no, just let somebody else do that. And I'm like, listen, you want to work with people who's been somewhere. You want to work with people who's better than you, because if you never work with people who are better than you, you're never going to grow at all. And so, but yeah, you've got to have those guys that are better than you to teach you and bring you along.
Yeah, that's the way the business is supposed to work. I've heard people who are nervous about an upcoming match, with a named talent, and they're like, I don't know, man, I'm just like, I don't feel like I'm on their level. I'm like, well, how do you think you get to that level?
Exactly.
It doesn't just happen. Like, you can be a super athlete and be really good in training, but like that doesn't mean you get it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like they'll lead you through how to put in everything. Like nobody comes out of training. They're like, here I am. I know everything. No matter how much some of them think they do. But that's how it's supposed to be. And like sometimes it's not always, this, but it's not always sit here and like, here, I'll tell you advice. Sometimes it's, hey, you screwed up, thump you in the head. Here's what you did wrong. Oh, I'll never do that again.
Exactly.
That was a lot of Lone Star. Lone Star, he had me fire up on him, and he'd do he was 6'6", 400, and he'd like do the big wobble sell, and then he'd come back when he wanted you to punch him again. And I didn't know that. So he goes, all right, kid, come back on me. And I just start hitting him with like rapid fire punches. And it was supposed to be a thumb to the eye, but he just palmed me on top of the head and drops me. And he's like, slow down. Yeah. I'm like, okay. That's how you learn, man. And I don't know. I miss it. I look back on it fondly because the business has changed. And I'm not one of these old guys yelling out of the clouds or anything, but it's just different.
Well, I'm the exact same way. Guys like me and you and Rivers and there's a few others, we're kind of those guys that 70s or 80s, man, I think we could have had a lot of fun.
I think I may have died. I'm just saying how Logan's guys partied, and like I'm past my partying years now. Yeah, but I remember just how hard the Nashville guys partied, and that was like on a weekend, right? And these 80s guys partying like that every night of the week. I don't know if I would have made it.
Well, no,
we probably would have had fun. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about in the ring. I'm talking.
Yeah. No.
About,
Absolutely.
I'm talking about. I believe we could have at least been a good Dennis Stamp or something,
brother.
Yeah,
brother. I'm still like pin me, pay me. You know what I mean?
That's how I am too. There was a time where I wanted to be over, and I wanted everything to make 100% sense and everything. And now I'm just like, hey, I'm here. My passion, the last several years is to teach and help other guys, because at the moment I'm not trying to do this for a living, and I don't know that I'll ever get back to that desire. But no, I just want to help guys along. And so I don't care if I'm over, I don't care if I'm under. I'm just ready to go out there and teach and pass down some knowledge that, I was blessed with guys handing down to me.
Yeah. What's it called? If you're around long enough, I think you finally get in that mindset. Unless you've reached something and then fell from it. But if you've just been plugging away for so long, you kind of get that, I call it the curse of the good hand mindset.
Yeah.
Where you're just you're like, whatever happens here, I know I can take care of myself in the ring. I know if this guy's not good, I can try to pull something out of him. I know I can protect myself so I don't get hurt if this guy's that bad.
Yeah.
And I'll get paid and be fine. Am I putting this guy over? I don't care. Am I going over? I don't care. I just want to have this match and, be done and hang out with my buddies. And I always call that the curse of the good hand, because if you look at guys and never met the guy, you may have Brad Armstrong.
Great.
Yeah. So super good hand, right? Super talented, but I don't think ever, and this is just through podcasts and stuff I listen to talking about him, I don't think ever cared about trying to be that top guy, and he never tried to politic about being that top guy, never complained about putting somebody over. He just went out there, had his good match, and got his pay. It's all right, guys, see you.
See you in the next town. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a mindset that some people have and some people don't. And I think if you're doing it long enough and you're confident in yourself and you're like, if you can make yourself a utility player, you kind of get that mindset, because I can lose and still be over. It's fine. I know how to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And like you was talking about, once you get to that certain point, you realize that that's not really what it's all about. You get to a place where you learn to get yourself over, whether you're losing every match or not. And so if you can build that character and you can be that worker that connects with the people, they don't care what you're doing. You're still probably going to sell more gimmicks than the guy who you just put over.
Yeah, man. And it's just, I don't know, but you have to have that killer instinct, right? To make it be a top guy. You very rarely see the guys who are just I'm cool with whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
Get there. There's few exceptions. I feel like Daniel Bryan's that guy, right? He's the very, he just worked really hard and it just happened to get there. I can't picture him, from everything I know about him, politicking ever. Mm-hmm. So I do say sometimes it happens, but other times, you got to kind of protect your spot, right?
Well, you do. Yeah.
I mean, if you're wanting that, and it's, I don't know. I think once you said something earlier that was really, I'm getting really deep with this, and I'm sorry. I've been thinking a lot about as I've gotten older, I've been thinking a lot about wrestling and looking at the career side of it and stuff like that. And you said you don't know if you'll ever pursue making this as a living, right? I think once you get in the spot in your mind where you're not in the constant fight with having to make it your living, right? So you got a good job and we'll work around it so you can still make all the shows you need to make, but it's a good enough job that if you had to stop wrestling tomorrow and you don't hate it, if it's a job you hate, that's one thing, but it's a job you don't hate.
Yeah.
If you had to give up wrestling tomorrow for a reason other than them taking it away from you, that you'd be all right, that sucks, but I'm set and I'm content. I did some things that I like. Once you get content, I think you also kind of lose that. You don't lose that fighting spirit, but you lose the want to be shady about it and stuff like that and do the politics.
Yeah. Now that you mention that, I totally understand exactly what you're saying. And I would honestly say that once there's a lot of guys who have probably actually didn't get their break until they got to that place, because maybe when they were striving to make it so much, they were going overboard and maybe not doing something that connected, or maybe their work was sloppy or whatever. And when you kind of get to that point where you're like, whatever, I'm just having fun and want to help guys out and make shots. You never know. But I did understand exactly what you're saying right there. It makes a lot of sense.
And it's also the energy you put out too, right, man? How many times, I know me, I can only speak for me. I just assume other people feel like I do, but like, do you get in really, really good shape and you feel like your work's on point and everything. And then, and maybe you have a tryout or something. This is my personal experience. This is what I'm reaching from.
Yeah.
And then like, you don't get anything from the tryout, but then you see some guys who, flunked the tryout but still got on the show somehow because they knew somebody, and you're mad about that for months, right? Because it's not just you don't know how to let go of one thing one day and then you're just bitter, and no matter how you don't try to reflect that reflects out. And I don't know, I've become a big thing on like positive energy and The Secret and stuff like that lately too. So
well, that's there's a lot of truth to that, because I can think back at a few different instances. One, me and Rivers doing a practice match, we were up doing some extra spots, and Regal was out ringside watching. We got done, and he told us some stuff to work on, told us, hey, do this and do this a little different and maybe put this here and whatnot. But he gave us one of the best compliments that ever came, in my career. He said, you guys' style really reminded me of Tully and Arn. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. But at the time, they wasn't hiring any tag teams. Everything was all thrown together guys and whatnot. And then after I stopped pursuing it, I remember I was down at Johnny Rock's house one day, and he said, hey, have you seen these guys, the Revival? And I said, no, I don't think so. And it was when they were in NXT. And he said, dude, these guys remind me of you and Rivers so much. And he had me sit down and watch one of their matches, and I was like, man, just a couple of years ago, just that much of a difference. So, that kind of stuff can be disappointing. It can also be motivating, though.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, absolutely. They say, so many people, you get two different things in wrestling, right? You either get, oh, it's all right place, right time, or you get, no, it's hard work and you get there. And it's so much both, but like it's hard work over time, so that you finally hit that right place, right time. And I don't know, like you were in the wrong place when they weren't hiring tag teams. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they create a tag team who work y'all's style. Yeah. And that is something that you can either, adapt and work from, or you can just get so mad at the world and be bitter about it. I spent many years bitter, man.
So I want to take a kind of a side course here. I've been listening lately to the Territorial Wrestling Review, which you are a co-host of with Quentin Charisma. Now, dude, we were talking about this earlier today. I enjoy these old stories. I enjoy the match reviews, and just talking like the one I listened to today. You guys were talking about the Dusty and Superstar, and I'm definitely going to have to pull that one up and watch it, because I've watched the bull rope match, but the one you guys watched, I don't think I've seen that. But man, it sounded exciting. I know you were disappointed about the finish, but Quentin was like totally putting it over. So I'm definitely going to sit down and watch it sometime. But no. So how'd you get started in podcasting? well, actually, before that, take me to where you and Quentin hooked up, and then now to your relationship in the podcasting world.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So it was Columbia, Tennessee. Hot Rod Biggs had needed to turn me heel, even though I was nowhere near ready to be a heel. You know what I mean? Like to lead a match heel. But he needed to turn me heel. And Quentin had come back. Quentin had a car wreck years ago and was out of wrestling for about a year, I think, just because Quentin's a large man, but he's also really banged up. So he came back as a manager. And Quentin had always done like kind of more a flamboyant gimmick. He went out to straight almost, I wouldn't say drag, but makeup at one point, but he pulled that, he said he did that for like 6 months. And he's like, nah, that's too much. Yeah. So he just pulled it back to like being real flamboyant and silly. So when he managed, he would wear, he had seasonal wears. When it was the summer, he had a big old Hawaiian shirt on, shorts and flip-flops, and he'd beat you to death with the flip-flop on the outside. When it was winter, he had a velour jumpsuit with, I'm going to say jewel double Qs on it, but we just bought a whole bunch of jewels from Hobby Lobby and hot glued those bad boys on it.
Yeah.
He had a little cabbie hat. He had an umbrella that he just murdered guys with. He swore he didn't, but man, he just killed guys with. But no, so they're like, all right, we're going to turn you, and he's going to be your manager. And I'd met him one time before on one of those early shows in Smyrna when he was starting to try to come back to wrestle. And I think that night he was like, not yet. And we'd actually got off on a bad foot because I was buddies with his tag team partner, Mike Jablonski, and Mike hid my bag. It told me Quentin hid my bag. And Quentin didn't know me from Adam. I go, hey, man, what'd you do with my bag? And Quentin just chewed me out in the middle of the locker room. But so he ended up managing me, and I learned a lot from him because he was really, really smart. He's an old tape trader from back in the day. Loves his Memphis wrestling. Loves all wrestling, but like really big on Memphis wrestling. Was a huge Jeff Jarrett fan growing up. I know that because I always rip him about. He had this picture in his collection that was him like meeting Jeff Jarrett outside, and they both have sweet mullets. It was great. But I always say he's got a crush on Jeff Jarrett. I'm trying to find. They had this poster. I'll get to the poster in a minute. Dang it, I'm everywhere. Sorry, but yeah. So he was my manager, and then he's like, I think I'm ready to work. Let's do a 6-man tag. Me, you, and Mike. We did a 6-man, and of course ribbed him right off the bat. Like while we're all training and looking tough, as soon as the baby faces get in, we get out of the ring and get on the aprons. So he has to start the match. He hasn't wrestled in a year and a half or whatever. But no, we just became buddies then. He wanted to start tagging, and I was totally cool with the idea. And he used to be in a tag team called Hangin' Tough, like the old New Kids on the Block song. And I remember that because when I would go to Independence when I was real young, I just remembered them for some reason, and they're on local TV, like super public access TV. Yeah. So I remember watching them, like, let's be Hanging Tough, and he's like, nah, that's not our deal. I'm like, no, it's fine, whatever. So I convinced him, and we were Hanging Tough, the Kings of the Strut, and we ripped off Larry Sweeney for a Southern crowd is what we really did. We bleached our hair. We just tried to be old throwback tag team, and then like add some bright colors. We wore like pinks and turquoises and stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah, we did that we introduced a third member when Tony Falk wanted to push me singles so we could still keep Hanging Tough going, and kind of do like a Freebirds rule with that. But yeah, we did that for about 3 years. Quentin wrestled about a year or two more after that. And then his knees and his tailbone and stuff just got so bad, which, I mean, he was, in his later years, he was never under 300. And like, this is a guy who, one of his favorite spots was, and I don't do leg drops anymore, but we used to do revolving door leg drops where he'd drop one and hop up, and I drop one, and we just go in a circle and keep doing them. Yeah. And he'd body slam a guy on the floor and do a leg drop. And I'm like, that can't be good for your back. And years later, it's not.
That gets rough after a while.
Yeah, but he introduced me to a lot of wrestling because he still had his whole collection from when he's a tape trader. Yeah. So we get a loot book, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And Thursday, I'd go home. But Friday, after the show, I'd stay at his house and we'd watch wrestling until we passed out. Then we'd get up in the morning, and as long as it wasn't baseball season, because he was a big baseball fan, we'd watch wrestling until we left for the show. Yeah. So he turned me on to all sorts of stuff, and we'd watch all this tag stuff. And like I remember him saying, he's like, I've never been in a tag team where I actually tried to get double teams together. We just always shoot them off and double back elbow. And we're watching old, like, a heavenly body spots and be like, oh, we can do this and change it here. And, we're actually trying to do the thing, I guess. We stay really, really busy 3 to 4 times a week, every week.
That's good.
Yeah. And I don't know, he's just a big time mentor for me, man. He started in 92. So he had been wrestling like 12 years when he and I first met.
Right.
So I just grasped everything off of him, and he'd teach me history, and he got me into wrestling history. And yeah, that's good stuff. That having a mentor like that is a definite blessing. Somebody that you could just soak up. Yeah.
Hey guys, have you ever wanted to have your very own podcast? Well, you can now, thanks to Anchor. Anchor has easy-to-use editing tools, and one of my favorite things about Anchor, they will distribute your podcast to all the major platforms, including Spotify, Apple, Google, and the others. All you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. We're about to get back into the second half of my conversation with Jeremiah Plunkett, but before we do, I want to take a little time to share a quick word with you. In this world that we live in, there's so many people today who feel hopeless. So many people have been told by everyone around them, maybe even by their own family, and for sure by the enemy, that they are useless, hopeless, worthless, that they've messed up too much, that God's done with them, that He can never use them, and that they may as well just crawl off in a hole and die. But I want to share a simple fact with you. Jesus loves you. Jesus loved you so much that He came to this earth. He lived a perfect life. He never sinned in word, thought, or deed. He went to the cross as our perfect sacrifice. He took all of the punishment and the wrath of God and paid the sin debt that we owed. He died, was buried, and then resurrected 3 days later. He ascended to heaven, and He will soon return again. That's the gospel. It's simple. And Romans chapter 10 and verse 9 says that if you confess with your mouth Jesus as Lord, and you believe in your heart that God raised Him from the dead, you will be saved. I know a lot of churches and religious institutions, they try to make it hard, but the gospel is simple. You just anchor your faith in who Jesus is and what He has done for you. And I promise you, at that very moment, you will become a new creation. The Holy Spirit will come to live inside you. You will begin feeling Him cleaning you up from the inside out. The things that you used to desire, you no longer desire. Strongholds and sins that used to have a grip on you. One day you wake up and realize that those things are no longer hanging on to you. Listen, it's not about you trying to earn brownie points and climb a ladder and you, in your own human effort, being good enough to please God. We could never do it. That's why Jesus came and did it for us. Now all you have to do is believe. Trust me, it's the best decision that you'll ever make.
So now, how did you guys come into the podcasting world?
So he had been doing if you look at us on Spotify or on Anchor, it's a little janky because of how he had it set up. But so it's under the No Budget Podcast Center on Anchor and Spotify. And he used to do a couple of different shows. And it's just kind of something because he is from the injuries and stuff like that and just wear and tear over time. He's disabled. He doesn't get out of the house a lot. So he started doing this kind of podcasting, and it's mostly about wrestling, but he has some that are just about ramblings. And he was doing one with a guy named Mark Gordy, and they would just talk wrestling, but they didn't have, it's called Calling It in the Ring. So They had no format. So it could be, it's supposed to be a wrestling centric podcast, and it usually was. But then like one episode they talked about fair foods. You know what I mean? And, which is hilarious. But so it's like, oh, I thought this was a wrestling podcast. So I don't know what happened with him and Mark, like not like a fight or anything, but something just happened where the schedules couldn't line up. And he'd done like his other podcast was he'd interview guys. He'd talk about wrestling himself or interview guys. And he'd interviewed me a couple times or whatever, which ended up just being me and him joking because that's all we do when we talk. You've heard,
Yeah.
So then he's like, hey, will you do this deal? And I did a couple episodes of Calling It in the Ring, I guess. Technically, I don't know how they're actually labeled on the thing. And then he's like, would you like to do a podcast? I'm like, yeah, but if we do, I want to do a format, right? Because like some nights I'm going to need more help coming up with stuff to talk about than others. And he goes, okay, well, how about like one of us, it had to be him. He talked about, let's review, old wrestling. I'm like, cool, I'm good with that. And he goes, what we can do is find a whole season. This is where we started. We can find a whole season and watch that season in order.
Yeah.
And we'll rank each matches. So he picked Memphis 1987. And while it may have been good at the live events and who was in there, the TVs were not good. And we muscled through the entire year. And yeah, that was done. And it was put to bed, thankfully. And we were talking about, because it got so bad, especially toward the end, that we were like, hey man, like we're talking offline. We're like, we got to come up with a different gimmick. Because I can't do another bad year of TV. And he goes, well, what if we just do single matches? So that's what we started out doing. We would pick matches and just review that match. And then we talk about whatever outside of that match. But like, that was our main point of the podcast. And at first we were looking them up, and now we're doing them without watching them first. It used to be we'd watch them and then both break them down.
Yeah.
And one night Quentin didn't have time to watch it. And he's like, what are we going to do? I'm like, I can share my screen on Zoom and we'll watch it together. And his reactions are so good. I was like, we have to do this every time.
Yeah.
Because like your first time reactions are so good that I want to capture that. And that's kind of where it went from there. And, we came from when we were first, I say came from, not like we'd moved far, but when we were first recording, he had his tablet with the Anchor app, and then I'd call his phone and he'd put me on speakerphone and just kind of put them next to each other. So I'm sorry if anyone goes back and listens to those old episodes. But now we use Zoom, and I'm teaching myself Audacity to edit it, and so we're trying to improve it, but we have a lot of fun doing it. And it gives me a chance to talk to Quentin every week, because you know how it is in wrestling, man. Like, kind of fall out of contact with people sometimes, and then me and you.
Oh, yeah. Lord, it's been what, 8 or 10 years since we've seen each other?
Yeah. Wow. We've talked on social media here and there, but like, seeing each other, geez.
Yeah.
That's what I said. I didn't recognize you with that blonde hair. You know what I mean? So it gives me a chance to talk to him every week. You know what I mean? And if you listen to it and you said it, it's a normal conversation with a wrestling match thrown in the middle, because we are bad about getting off on tangents, and we're bad about just joking about stuff.
Yeah.
And we're real bad with technology too. I'm getting good at editing though, so I cover them up. I cover them up with record scratches. That's my favorite thing in the world to do. On this last episode, we had 4 takes to get started. And did you listen to this last one?
Yeah.
The intro is every take and just record scratch. Yeah, it's great. I might have more fun editing it, because when it goes wrong than I do recording the episode.
Yeah, that was good stuff. I know last week I was scrolling down through there looking, and one that I ran across that I really enjoyed was the Tracy Smothers tribute.
Bro.
Man, I about had tears in my eyes the whole time listening to that. Man, I had lost contact with Tracy the last couple of years, pretty much like I had everybody. I deleted pretty much all of my social media the last couple of years, and it's not that I was just trying to be a hermit. I just didn't have a desire for wrestling or anything, and so I was just for me, I was like, well, what's the use in having social media if I'm not trying to market myself? So, but I do miss so much of the stuff that I used to have, like old pictures and stuff on the old Facebook. Instead of deactivating, I was like a dummy and just deleted everything. Same thing with the Twitter. And building a Twitter account is like, whoa, from scratch. But, got back on Twitter, last month or whatever, and started reconnecting with some guys, you and Nikita. And so that's been good. But I'd lost touch with Tracy. And then, I'd heard, I saw people putting stuff on there. Once I got back on Facebook, saw people saying something about, pray for Tracy. And I'm like, what's going on? So I text Chase and I'm like, what's going on? And, he told me about the cancer and whatnot. And, man, Tracy was a great one. And I know he was one that had a great influence on your career too. And I'll just be honest. I don't think that anybody who wants to learn could ever sit in a locker room with Tracy Smothers and not learn and him have an influence on their career.
No, I think you're absolutely right. You talked about texting Chase. I'm the one who told Chase the day it happened.
Ooh.
Bro, that was hard. Yeah, man, dude, Tracy. So Tracy had so many quote unquote kids everywhere, man. Like, you're all sons or daughters of Smothers. Tracy's, I think he's another one of those who like didn't care. You know what I mean? Like he cared about wrestling. He loved wrestling. He wanted everybody to be good in wrestling. That's why he was what he was. But he was another one of those like, kids going over, cool. I'm going over, cool. Like right. Whatever. Like, but it wasn't a pay me. I don't want to be here. It was I've heard him say this. Hey man, I got to get this match out of the way. Then we'll come back and talk. Tracy loved everybody, man. The wrestling was cool part. You know what I mean? We all love Tracy.
Yes.
And he loved to wrestle, but like, he's like, hey, let me get this 10 minutes out of the way, and then I'll come back and, 10 minutes minus his promo. And then we'll come back and we'll talk, the rest of the night, man. And Smoth was influential on my career, man. He's the first name. Yeah, Tracy was before him. Tracy was the first name I ever met. I was on a show with Brian Lee prior to that, but Brian Lee it was a surprise thing from the beginning, so I never met him, and then he left right after. But no, Tracy came to one of those shows in Columbia, Tennessee, and most of the older guys on the show didn't want to talk to me. So much less the name on the show. You know what I mean? He's not going to want to talk to me. And no, he was the coolest guy on the planet.
I guarantee it.
And it helped that him and Quentin were really good buddies, and Quentin was managing me. So I was like, hey, Quentin. To the point, when me and Quentin started tagging, he'd call me Little Quentin. Dude, he would what's some things he did. Like, I never went on the road with him, and that's one thing I regret. I wound up on a whole bunch of shows with him that I didn't even know he'd be at. Like some idiot promoter didn't advertise him. He's like, and I'd hear all of a sudden, Jeremiah was a fool, and Tracy'd be walking in. And I'm like, you're not on the flyer. He goes, I don't know. I'm just here.
Yeah.
But God, so he you're talking about Stadium Inn. Bird had left, but Tony Falk was running it. And this is the things Tracy would do. And he was running a seminar every Sunday that month. Tracy would. And I was going to go to all of them. I had the money to showed up. Tracy said, hey, Little Quentin. I hate that he calls me that. And now Quentin's going to know. But he goes, if you'll do some of the bumps for me because his hip or knee or something was hurting at the time. He goes, you don't have to pay for it. I'm like, really? Okay, sweet. And dude, it was like he had me doing. He was still taking all the bumps. He showed me how to do a fireman's carry. I threw a terrible fireman's carry at that time, and I went to do it to him, and it's crappy. Or no, yeah, no, he went to do it with me, and I took kind of crappy. He's like, no, like this, and he took 4. You know what I mean? So he's doing just as much bumping as he would have.
Yeah,
but he just trying to help out. And then when we did that stuff for NWA Saw, and I had that world title match, they wanted somebody because I was known there, but I wasn't known really big. So for the TV, not for the draw, but for the TV, they wanted to have they wanted that story of bringing in the old veteran to not soften me up, harden me up, thing. So they had Smuzz do it. As a matter of fact, and I love Dr. Tom to death, and they had contacted Dr. Tom and Tracy. And I guess Tom had asked for more than Tracy, so they went with Tracy. And I love Dr. Tom to death, but I was so close to Tracy. Like, I didn't become close to Dr. Tom until well after.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I love Tom, but I didn't know him at the time. I'm like, why didn't you go with Tracy from the start?
Yeah.
Like, that, if we're going with stories, like, this is a real one. Like, this is somebody. And it was real, to the fact that I found out years later what he made to come down and shoot vignettes and then come down to manage me for the match, bro. He covered gas.
Yeah.
And that was what he offered that to help me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, because he told me that one night. Yeah, I don't know, wasn't Whiskey Mondays, but one of the nights, I was talking to him about it, and he told, he's like, hey, so I was going down there for you. I'm like, yeah, well, did it take care of you? And he told me, I was like, dude, no, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, I love you, but not even for me. Don't do that. Don't do that ever again, Tracy. And then, like, that day, I was sitting there with the gimmick table, and Tracy came out, a little late, per normal, but he started setting out these 4x6s, and I started moving my stuff over. He goes, no, put them on your stuff. Anything they sell, give them that. And he's telling everybody that, and I'm like, okay, cool, I'll cut you in. And he goes, no. He just wanted to do stuff to help the boys, man.
He did.
God.
I know we used to book him some on our shows around, our local area here. And, he was always really good about cutting deals. And he was always one of those who just wanted to help the guys. He was such a teacher. And why he never had a concrete job with WWE or somebody full-time doing, I don't care what it would have took to keep Tracy in the training center. They should have done it. I mean, because he was all about teaching and all about helping guys up to the day he died.
Yeah, dude, to the point about, oh God, I'm trying to remember, 8 months before he passed. The whole past year and a half kind of blurs together when you stay at home so much.
Yeah.
But it was obviously pre-COVID. It was because that's the last time I saw Tracy. Was that WrestleCade? I went down to WrestleCade, and I'd heard Smuz was sick, but I hadn't seen him.
Yeah.
I'd seen him when he still had his hair and he lost some weight, and I just thought he finally started working out, like see, and he'd be like, oh, got to get in shape, got to do that DDP yoga. And then you'd see him again, and he'd say the same thing because he still hasn't started yet, and or he did it like 3 days, and then something happened. It was always the same conversation, and that's why I was like, "Oh man, he started getting in shape, cool." And then because I just saw pictures, and then I saw him at WrestleCade, and he didn't have any hair, and he had lost even more weight, and oh my god, it got me. But then when we talked then, we're trying to ask how he's doing, and he doesn't want to talk about him. He's like, how are you guys doing? Where are you working? Blah, blah, blah. Like, so has all this energy, you know what I mean? But he's like, I want to know about you. And that's all he wanted to know about. Where are you working? Blah, and like when he was working, he'd be like, hey, you want me to get you on this show? I saw a video of him, Chuck Taylor and Trent Beretta did an interview with Tracy at WrestleCon, the big one they do in New York.
Yeah.
And they interviewed Smuz, is on the High Spots Network. And in the middle of the interview, they're like, hey, where are you at tonight? And he's like, oh, I got so-and-so at midnight. And then on the 2 a.m., they go, you on these? And they're signed to AEW at the time. They're just finishing out their stuff. Yeah. And they're like, no, we're not doing any shows. He's like, I'll get you on. You know what I mean? He's the best.
He is.
The best. He's constantly in that work mode. And how can I help somebody?
Yeah, I remember the first time that I worked with him, and I had been around him, quite a bit around Nashville and everything. But the first time I actually worked him, I was babyface, he was heel, and I was like, okay, Trace, what do we want to do out there? And he's like, hey, baby, listen, hey, you do this, I'll do this, we're all good. That was it, man. And it start slow and taper off.
Yes. Yes. We had a match and we didn't do, we did stuff, but we didn't do stuff. You know what I mean? And he goes, work like that every night. You'll work for the rest of your life. You know.
I remember me and him and Chase rode up to, I can't even remember the promotion, but it was somewhere in Indiana. And I worked Tracy that night. And, dude, this place was packed. I worked Tracy, and we worked a headlock and a rear chin lock the whole match. And, you know, of course, he was the heel, and he had Jesse out there. And so, I mean, but it was old school. We did like 15, 20, and it was just so solid. And the people were on the edge of their seat the whole time over a headlock and a rear chin lock, and, you know, a couple of little climbing up hope spots. And then, oh, he's got me right back down. And these people didn't even know me, I don't think. You know, so it was just all Tracy with that old school mentality. And that's the kind of examples that I like to give when some of these guys today say, oh, that stuff don't get over anymore.
Yeah, no, it can. Anything can get over if you do it right. Yeah. I'm not anti-high flying wrestling. I'm not anti any type of wrestling. I'm anti-wrestling I'll do.
Right.
You know, not a death match guy. Not happening here.
No.
High flying flippy match, I'll catch you all day long. I'm not flipping. That's just not me.
Yep.
But like I love wrestling. I love all different kinds of wrestling. But like you've seen Lucha Libre, for example. Like I'm not the biggest fan of Lucha, but there's good Lucha, and then there's Lucha that I just don't care about. Like I'll watch, you know, Dr. Wagner, you know, because he's an older, seasoned luchador, and he gets like the entertainment and stuff, and he gets the more American style. But like, you know, guys like him, you know, I love like New Japan and All Japan and stuff like that. I love that stuff, but I like 91 through 95 All Japan. Like I'll sit and binge that. I love World of Sport Wrestling. I love all that stuff. But like you can tell, you can watch any match, no matter who's in it, if you know them, if you don't, and just watch it. If you end up turning it off, those guys, it's either not something you're into, or those guys just aren't good at what they do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there's high flyers we all love. There's there's luchadors, there's hardcore guys, deathmatch guys. Like there's guys everyone loves because they're good at their job.
Right.
It's not the style. And I think that's where a lot of it's missed. You know, there's fantastic old school wrestlers.
Yes.
And they're on TV. It might be a little more sped up than it was in 1975. Cool, I get that, but it's still the same thing.
Right.
You were talking about, you know, the Revival or FTR now. They're old school wrestlers. Like, okay, they do a bit more flips every now and then, but they're still just telling a story with mainly old school moves. It's the same mentality. You know what I mean?
I think that's the key. And I do think I honestly don't watch too much anymore at all. I'll flip on every now and then just see what kind of stories are going on. You know, I'll watch some of my buddies on YouTube, or watch some old matches here and there, or, you know, flip on some old school stuff. But as far as really keeping up with current stuff, I don't do that much anymore. But the things that I have watched, if I could give a bit of advice to guys, it would be to slow down and tell a story. Because a lot of times you can, I mean, yes, these guys, they can do great things. Sadly, most of their careers are probably going to end early, but they can do awesome things, but there's so much all over the place. And for my taste anyway, I like to be able to comprehend what's going on. I enjoy the telling of the story. If you want to throw all this stuff in, that's fine, but give me a story instead of just a choreographed dance. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. And I guess that's where a spot where I'm a huge fan of the main events in New Japan currently, just because like guys like Okada, you know, his series with Omega was amazing. And, you know, there's a lot of people who say that, I say a lot of people, I'm sorry. people on the internet say that Kenny Omega's lost his step. And I'll be honest, I haven't watched a lot of him since he came to AEW. I'm not an AEW hater. I cut the cord, man. I don't have TBS. You know what I mean? Or is it on TNT? It's TNT, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, TNT. I don't have TNT, you know, so because I'm all Netflix and everything like that. So I see stuff after the fact. That's just what I do. But if he's lost anything, he lost Okada, who is one of the best wrestlers in the world, to tell a story off of.
Right.
You know, because that guy, I've never seen him have a match that like wasn't emotionally investing. And him and Kenny was amazing. It's the best person I've seen him dance with.
Yeah.
But like, I think people slept on how good Okada was in that deal. So like, there's guys like that who still draw you. And Edge, man, Edge. I don't know if you've seen any of him since his comeback. Edge is all emotion. It's all emotion now.
Yeah.
And dude, it can draw you in so good. And that's all you need, man. It doesn't matter what style you do. You can work emotion into it. And a story that leads to that emotion or works off of that emotion, it's all you need.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you sprinkle around it. You can do 18 million flips that have emotion somehow. Cool. Send somebody through a barbed wire cage or whatever. Cool. Have a technical wrestling match with emotion. Cool. I don't care what you do as long as you can hook my emotion somewhere.
Yeah. Just give the people a story to grab a hold of. We're going to have to wrap this thing up here soon, but I got a couple of more things that I want to get out of you before we go. Number one, like I said, we were talking, it's been 8 or 10 years since I've seen you. Obviously, you're trimming up. What's up, brother? What are you doing? Diet, workout plan? What's up?
So yeah, man, I got real big. My highest I ever got was 320 pounds. That was me right after my shoulder surgery. I had to have my labrum repaired, my bicep replaced. Tried to spike on a DDT on the apron like an idiot. So I got really depressed while I was hurt for that. So I got up to 320. And then it was a constant battle after that just to like try to lose weight. I got down to 255 one time in that period. So that was 2015. So this is the past 6 years. So I got down to 255 one time during that period, but I was taking, weight loss drugs and it's basically legal meth. And then like the minute I stopped taking it, I started gaining it all back. So then I just became content with as long as I stay under 300, I'm okay. Right. Because that was the part that like really got me depressed was when I hit over 300. So I started getting okay with that. And I would hang around between 275 and 295. And man, like, I don't know if it was getting engaged. I don't know what it was, man, but like I finally thought I quit trying to lose weight for wrestling.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get healthy for my life and my fiance, soon to be wife's life. And I just wanted to change up. So I just started cleaning up my diet. It was purely diet first, because that's the hardest. I mean, it's the one I still battle with from time to time.
Definitely.
So I didn't do keto. Because I'd done keto before, and while I would lose weight, I would get high cholesterol, and that scares me because I have a history of heart problems. Not me personally, but my family has a history of heart problems.
Yeah.
But I did go low carb. I did cut the majority of wheat, grain, anything out of my diet, but I also reduced fat. And I just do MyFitnessPal, man, and I just log everything usually. And it's nothing too special. It's, I don't eat a lot of red meat anymore. And I don't eat a lot of pork anymore. I do try to do red meat more than pork. Most other things, chicken, fish, that's pretty much all left. And eggs. And and it depends. I'll just depend things how I feel too. Like, some days I'll do egg whites, and some days you just need a yolk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some days you're just like, I need something, and you'll pop a yolk in there, and you're all good usually. The only thing I do try to stick to regarding diet wise is I try to intermittent fast a bare minimum of 12 hours a day, but I like to get over 16.
Yeah.
Don't always do that. Sometimes you just want breakfast, but I've never been a big breakfast guy, so it's not that hard. And I set my fast up where I sleep through most of it.
Right.
As far as exercise goes, man, I was doing DDP yoga for a long time. Well, I say a long time when I started this, and I'm still pretty much sticking with that. I get Diamond Dallas Page will never hear this, I hope, but I get bored with it sometimes. Just want to switch it up. But like I used to power lift, right? And I've never found that the love. But after I tore my shoulder, like I can't hold a squat bar, putting too much weight up. I just don't want to do it anymore. My joints are so bad, and this is all gimmicked up. So I do a lot of body weight stuff. I really enjoy body weight stuff. When it's nice outside, I've found I really like working out outside. So, I'll bring dumbbells out there and work out, or I've got you ever worked out with a mace bell? Basically like a small bowling ball on the end of a stick.
Oh, no, I've never done that.
Yeah, I've got one of those, and I don't know, it's just kind of fun to do. And I live out in the country, so go outside with my shirt off and my shorts rolled up to try to get a little bit of a natural tan and swing that around. I look cool in my mind, you know what I mean? The neighboring horses are probably looking at me like I'm a crazy person. For me, I've got sunshades on, earphones in, just jamming out some 80s rock. It's like, I look really cool right now, But it gives me good workout, And some days all I do is walk. It just depends on how I feel. I'm battling a knee injury right now, so I'm really kind of nothing bad, but just where you jar something in your knee, and then for the next couple of months you're just like, something's not right.
Yeah, there's just that little stinging every now and then or something.
Yeah.
Little shot. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really having a baby what I do there. But yeah, no, I keep it really simple, man. It's calories in, calories out, but also, stay away from the bread because bread's a bunch of empty calories.
Yeah, that's good, man. I'm the same way. I was never like a rip up guy, but there was a time where I was pretty solid, but the married life, a lot of times, that can do a number on you. But, we've recently set up a little gym in the house and with a few little things for equipment, and that's what we're doing. Because I kind of come to the place, I always wanted to be in shape for wrestling, and okay, it's got to fit my character. It's got to be this and that. And I'm at the point where you are, that I'm like, I just want to be healthy for my wife and kids and my future, So yeah, man, like I said, it's very noticeable. Keep up the good work. Look like you're doing good there. Now, where can people catch you?
Pizza place every now and then. I assume what you're referring to is I've been doing some tapings for the National Wrestling Alliance here recently on the Fight TV app.
Yep.
I've been a couple times on NWA Powerrr, and I was on the debut episode of their new show Power Surge. But yeah, they used to be on YouTube. Billy Corgan's at the National Wrestling Alliance. Obviously, COVID hit everybody, and it really hit live production hard. But now with things opening back up, the NWA is back. This time it is on Fight TV, who actually just got bought by Trilla or something like that, like a fight promoter. That's wild. But yeah, so it's every Tuesday at what time? 6:05 Eastern. There you go.
That's right.
Yeah. Remember Eastern, because I didn't the first time I tried to watch it. But yeah, 6:05 Eastern. Fight TV. You do have to subscribe for it. It's a nominal fee. It's $4.99, I believe, for the month. So, and you get the entire back catalog. But yeah, man, it's really fun. We've been having this kind of old school conversation, and that's what the NWA is to me. It's like the wrestling I grew up watching studio wrestling. Like the first wrestling I watched religiously was Memphis Wrestling every day on Saturdays.
Yeah.
I grew up on studio wrestling. It's studio wrestling, and I love it. I'm having a good time. I'm learning a lot from the people they have in that locker room. I don't want anyone listening to this to think there's something on paper, because there's not. I'm literally a guest anytime I'm there, but I love it there, and I hope that changes.
That's very good, man. So everybody, be sure to tune in to NWA and follow Plunkett on what's your social media.
You can thank Tony Lucasio for the name on all my social media. It's at Plunkitis. I'm going to spell it Plunkitis. Tony called me that for years, and when I first got on Twitter, I'm like, this would be a funny name, and now I have to spell it every time I tell somebody.
All right, man. Well, it's been a joy catching up with you.
Brother, it has.
Hopefully we'll see each other very soon, man.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All right. Well, you have a good night and God bless you.
You too. Bye, guys. Thank you.
For all Wrestling for the Faith updates, follow Casey on Facebook and on Twitter at Real Casey Kage.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Wrestling for the Faith with Casey Kage.